Hey, welcome to Mary's Recaps channel. Today we will be talking about a fantasy horror film called The Mist. Be careful, spoilers ahead. We see the artist David Drayton working on another painting at home. Suddenly, a violent storm hits, the lights go out, and an uprooted tree breaks the window in David's studio. In the morning, the man and his wife, Stephanie, review the damage left by the storm and discuss the upcoming trip to the store to have time to buy everything needed for repairs. Others might snap up the goods as the storm swept over the entire town. The couple's son, Billy, runs along the shore of the lake, examining the barn broken by a fallen tree. Suddenly, a thick fog begins to creep from the mountains, swirling over the water, and Stephanie thinks it looks strange.
Mist?
On the lake?
David and Billy go to town, taking Brent's neighbor, a local judge, with whom David had a lawsuit. Along the way, they meet a lot of military vehicles that are moving toward the mountains. David and Brent discuss rumors about projects the military is working on at their base, noting that machines are in a hurry today. There is also no electricity in the supermarket, which does not prevent crowds of citizens from hastily buying goods. David and Billy are also loading their cart and standing in a long line at the checkout when they see a military police officer stop a group of soldiers, announcing that all liberties are cancelled and they need to return to the unit. The alarm sounds disturbing. A bleeding-faced man named Dan runs through the parking lot, frantically yelling at everyone not to leave the store because something dangerous lurks in the fog. White clubs creep into the parking lot. One of the visitors loses his nerve, he breaks off and rushes to his car. But as soon as he disappears into a white haze, heartbreaking screams begin. Frightened visitors barricade themselves in the store and suggest versions of what is happening. Religious fanatic Marcia Carmody convinces everyone that the end of the world has come.
It's death out there. It's the end of days.
But no one's listening to her. Maybe the local factory exploded, covering everyone with a poisonous cloud? Perhaps some kind of gas has crept in from the mountains? One of the women worries about her children, whom she left unattended, and asks someone to help her get home, but people bashfully avert their eyes. No one dares to go into the fog. Seeing no other way out, the woman goes into the unknown alone and disappears. The left inside visitors are trying to prepare for a long wait. David settles down among the grocery shelves with his son, local school teachers Irene, Hetty and Amanda, Ollie the clerk, and a few other visitors. Ollie remembers that blankets are kept nearby and goes into the back room. He wants to wrap up a terrified and crying Billy, and David follows him. Suddenly, something begins to break into the iron door, almost knocking it off its fasteners. David calls for help from several men from the audience, but everything has already calmed down, and they don't believe in his story. Everyone believes that the artist's nerves have cleared up from what happened. The men are discussing fixing the generator, and to start it, someone will have to go outside into the fog and clean the exhaust pipe. David does his best to dissuade the daredevils from this idea, but they only laugh at the coward.
Pussy.
With the boy Norm, mechanic James lifts the door and peers into the thick fog. At first, everything seems to be in order, and you can forget about stupid fears, but then long tentacles emerge from the white clubs and grab Norm. David tries to drag him back. Ollie rushes to help the artist, but their combined efforts are not enough to resist the monsters. The tentacles begin to rip chunks of flesh out of the youth and then drag him into the mist. Among all those present, only David, who wields an axe, forces the monster to retreat, and Ollie maintains relative composure. However, David breaks down when the door is closed, yelling at the mechanic that Norm died because of him.
You got that kid killed.
The men can hardly be pulled apart. Everyone returns to the hall, wondering how to tell the others about what happened, because David himself finds it difficult to believe what he saw. David, James and Ollie tell Judge Brent about the monsters in the fog, but Judge Brent refuses to even look at the tentacles. The man is sure this is David's revenge for the lost lawsuit. The judge thinks he's being deceived to look like a fool in front of the residents and disgrace him. No matter how much the artist convinces skeptics that he is right, they do not hear him, and a piece of a tentacle cut off from a monster blurs into black goo. Customers are divided into two groups. Some believe David and begin to barricade the store's glass windows with building materials and dog food packages that come to hand. Others believe that the men have become victims of hallucinations and plan to go outside. And only Marcia, who fanatic prays in the toilet, firmly believing that Armageddon has come. Amanda finds her there and wants to give her moral support, but gets only rudeness in return. Marcia enters the hall and begins to preach, frightening people with stories about the apocalypse and the bloody sacrifice necessary for the Lord. Only through the combined efforts of Ollie and Amanda can the woman be silenced. Amanda tells David that she has a revolver, and Ollie announces that he can shoot well, although it's hard to guess from his appearance. Brent, who categorically does not believe in mysticism, agitates supporters to go to the parking lot and get a shotgun from the car. At David's request, one of the men agrees to tie himself with a rope so that the rest can determine how far they can go. A group of volunteers goes into the fog. David gradually unwinds the rope. 10 meters. 30. Suddenly the rope falls freely on the floor, and then it stretches and starts to grow at a terrible speed, burning people's hands with friction. A monstrous force pulls a whole string of men through the half-open doors until the rope finally snaps, and its bloodied end, tied to half a human body, is dragged into the store. The night is coming. Store worker Sally meets one of the soldiers, Jessup, in the back room. A mutual feeling connects young people who try to support each other. Meanwhile, in the hall, in the light of handheld lanterns, people see strange insects resembling a hybrid of locust and scorpion, which densely stick to the store's glass walls. As visitors stare in amazement at the curiosity, an even more frightening creature with leathery wings appears, grabs the locusts, and punches a hole in the glass. Insects break into the store. People fight with evil spirits, with varying degrees of success. Amanda kills the locusts with a mop, but another insect bites Sally on the neck, after which the girl dies in Jessup's arms. A monster with leathery wings attacks a store worker, tearing pieces of his body out of him. David manages to build a torch out of a mop and work together to destroy the monster, but one of the men gets badly burned. But Marcia remains intact. When the locust attacked, the woman froze in place, starting to pray, and the insect flew away. This further convinces the fanatic that she is right, and everything that happens is explained, meaning it's the end of the world. Ollie kills another leathery monster that is about to cling to Billy with a revolver. The panic gradually subsides, and the visitors close up the gaps in the windows with improvised materials and count the losses. A burnt man in pain asks David to shoot him, Jessup weeps over Sally's corpse, and Amanda finds Hattie's friend overdosed on drugs. Some visitors begin to believe Marcia, seeing in her a prophetess sincerely.
She said that they would come at night. She told us someone would die.
David is afraid that the monsters will resume their attacks, and then the glass walls will not save. He suggests that his comrades take the SUV of the deceased Hetty and drive until there is enough gasoline to get as far as possible. Frightened by the fate of the first group of volunteers, his friends refuse, but David convinces them. Judging by the length of the rope, Brent and his associates managed to move 60 meters away, and the car was much closer. In addition, the artist sees how people crowd around the crazy preacher and do not want to take risks. However, you must first get to the pharmacy for medicine for the burnt man and other medication. Before taking action, David has to calm down a crying Billy and then have a firm discussion with Marcia, demanding people not to attract monsters' attention. Together with several volunteers, David goes into the fog. People are slowly moving through the thick haze, expecting to see monsters at any moment. However, luck is on their side. The road to the pharmacy is free, and the door to it is broken down. Acting as quietly as possible, the group fills the bags with medicines, then hears a rustling sound and, shining their flashlights up, sees people densely entangled in cobwebs on the ceiling. It seems that these are corpses, so James screams in horror when one of the unfortunates grabs his shoulder. The military policeman, turned into a cocoon by the creatures, convulses and screams that they did it all. The man does not have time to say anything more. His skin, swollen with blisters, bursts, and newly hatched insects similar to spiders begin to appear from it. Everything around is in motion. Adult spiders shoot threads at people that can burn through clothing and body, they fight off with axes and pointed sticks, and an elderly teacher Irene sets fire to the creature with a lighter and spray can. The survivors hurriedly leave the pharmacy to return to the store, and everyone is horrified. While David and his comrades are restoring their strength, more and more followers join the preacher. This time, James joins them, who, after what he saw in the pharmacy, had a real tantrum. Remembering the words of the dying policeman, the artist begins to interrogate Jessup about the project that the military is engaged in, but the guy tries to get off with slurred answers, and two of his comrades are found hanging in the back room. James hears the conversation. He grabs Jessup and drags him into the hall, shouting that he has found the one to blame. Under pressure from the preacher, the private tells that the military wanted to open a window to another dimension, from where the fog and the creatures inhabiting it splashed out. Angry people attack the guy. David and his team are trying to prevent it, but their strength is not enough to resist the crowd. Jessup is thrown out into the street, and the doors are locked in front of him. Everyone watches as a colossal arthropod emerges from the whiteout and pierces it with a claw. Marcia concludes with satisfaction that the sacrifice has been made for today. At night, Billy asks his father to promise he will never leave him to the monsters, and the artist swears. At dawn, David's group decides to escape. However, a preacher is waiting for them at the door, confident that Billy must be sacrificed in order for them to be saved. A fight breaks out, and the fugitives manage to break free only thanks to Ollie, who sends a bullet to Marcia's head with a well-aimed shot. Then, in a parking lot, Ollie is pinched by a giant monster, and spiders kill several more people. David, Billy, Amanda, Irene and Dan manage to jump into the car. The revolver that fell from Ollie's hand is on her hood. David swings open the door and manages to grab the weapon, avoiding the gruesome jaws at the last moment. Difficulty making their way through the fog, the fugitives move towards David's house. Hanging from its facade is Stephanie, entangled in cobwebs, to which the arachnid monsters have reached through a broken tree window. David's group continues on their way, hoping to get out of the fog before running out of fuel. They meet crumpled and overturned cars on the road, many entwined with cobwebs. A monster of enormous size passes by, stepping over electric poles. And its back is covered with writhing tentacles, and heavy steps shake the ground. Finally, the car turns off. The fog is still not going to clear, and there is no more hope. All passengers understand this. Now they have only one way out, a revolver with the last 4 rounds. Shots are heard from the fog-shrouded SUV, and then a terrible scream from David, who has just killed his son and fellow travelers. The artist tries to shoot himself, but the unloaded weapon is useless. In desperation, the man gets out of the car and screams, demanding that the monsters come and eat him.
Come on! Come on!
But instead of monsters, heavy military equipment leaves the fog. These soldiers will clean up the consequences of their mistake. The rescued people are driven past in a truck, and David manages to see the woman who was the first to leave the store, and both of her children are with her. Realizing how near rescue was, David falls to his knees by the car and screams in a fit of desperation. Well, if you want to enjoy more exciting stories, then you should watch these videos too. They will definitely not leave you indifferent. With you as Mary, see you in the next videos. Bye bye.